is Jimmy and welcome to my Astrophotography channel. This is Astrosynthesis, where 3 times a month I'll get some deep sky images, share them with you, tell you about the objects, and just help you have a better understanding of this process called astroimaging. This is a fairly complicated process, but once you get the hang of it, it can be fairly simple. The video I'm going to show you today is basically what you need to get started into this hobby. This hobby really has no limits. You can pretty much get started on a budget. I've been doing this for about a year now. I've always had an interest in astronomy, and hopefully this touches some people and gets them involved too. It's an incredible hobby. It's just, your imagination just run wild when you look at some of these pictures I take, or even on the internet, the Hubble. But I mean, this is something I do in my backyard. You don't need $1,000,000 pieces of equipment. Now you will need to know a thing or two about software processing and about the whole process of capturing a deep sky image. Today we're going to go over the pieces of equipment that are used in order to get my deep sky images. The first thing we're going to talk about is the telescope. It doesn't matter what focal length. I recommend small refractors. These basically use lenses to refract the light into a point. It's the oldest known design. They're really good for photography. It's just they can be quite expensive because of all the glass that's involved. The telescope you're looking at right now is the Stellarvue 70mm apochromatic airspace triplet refractor, and basically it refracts red, green, and blue light into a single point, so you don't get any kind of false colors. These are not the cheapest scopes to buy. However, I highly recommend them. They also do not need collimating as often, which means aligning the lenses. Whereas with a reflecting telescope that uses a mirror, you constantly have to align the mirrors in order to have, a proper focus. So basically these scopes can just work right out of the box. The scope on top is called a guide scope. This scope basically tracks a star within the field where the object you're imaging. And it kind of looks like a heartbeat. Now I'll show a picture of what it looks like when it's being ran through software. But it basically, as the Earth rotates, the equatorial mount turns with the rotation of the Earth, and this makes any kind of corrections when you're doing exposures longer than 30 seconds. It sounds really complicated, but bear with me. .6R Pro. The mount I had before worked perfectly well. However, I just wanted to be able to put more equipment, possibly a bigger scope on there in the future, and have better guiding capabilities. It's a belt-driven mount and uses servo motors. At the end of the mount, this is optional, it's called a polar scope. This helps you get within 0.5 arc seconds, which means that the mount will be synced to the Earth's rotation pretty accurately, which means your photographs will come out really well. And if you look on top of the scope too, it's another thing I'll mention. These are dew heaters right here, and these are basically used to keep the objectives from dewing up during long exposures. We're talking exposure, sometimes this thing's out there for hours on end. And basically what this does is keep the objectives clear. That way you can go for a significant amount of time without having your objectives dew up. On the mount right here is the dew heater controller. This controls the dew heaters. I keep them on medium. Basically it just runs a small current which creates a little bit of heat so those objectives don't get dewed up. I live in Florida, so this is very important, especially with the humidity. Right here's a USB hub connected to the mount. This will help basically connect everything to a laptop. That way it kind of gets rid of the clutter, because there will be a significant amount of wires and cables coming from the mount. Over here is one of the most important things. This is my imaging laptop. It's just a Dell Latitude laptop, and you can get these fairly cheap on the internet. This will basically run everything, the camera, the guiding, and you can connect to this remotely from inside the house using a program called Team Viewer. So I could basically watch everything on my phone while it's doing its thing outside. Another important thing you need to get is a light pollution filter. This basically helps you go longer without having, you are going to have some light pollution, but you'll be able to get rid of it during processing. Another important thing is processing. It's just as important as imaging, if not more important. And here is the next thing. This is a Canon Rebel T3i, Astro modified, which means it's had its IR cut filter removed, so it can basically get those really strong red colors and nebulas. This is known as hydrogen alpha, and I picked this up on Astro Mart, and it's a really good website for buying used astronomy equipment. I like using a DSLR. Eventually I'll graduate to a better camera, but this has worked fairly well for me. Alright, and that's the gist of everything. I hope you enjoy the future videos. If you want to subscribe, and I look forward to basically, showing you guys a tour of the universe. And it's an incredible thing, and thank you.